Hello and welcome to the instructional video for the Resilience Analysis and Planning Tool, or RAPT. The RAPT was developed by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. The Resilience Analysis and Planning Tool is a free, publicly available Geographic Information Systems, or GIS, analysis tool to help emergency managers, community partners, public health officials, and state agencies of all GIS skill levels. The RAPT can help to visualize and assess potential challenges to community resilience and also make strategic decisions for preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. The RAPT includes the community resilience indicators, infrastructure entities, and hazards information. We combine this with data analysis and visualization tools, and we can support planning, response, and recovery operations. To access the RAPT support website, just search for FEMA RAPT, like we have searched here. Our first option will be the RAPT support website. And once on the RAPT support website, you'll see information on what RAPT is, a link to the tool, and a link to the Resource Center. We recommend that everybody who uses RAPT check out the RAPT Resource Center, and you can access the RAPT Resource Center by clicking on the link. Once you're on the RAPT Resource Center, you can find all of the RAPT supporting resources. Please see the tabs at the top of the page to find more information. Under the RAPT tab, you'll see there's a link to the user guide, which provides step-by-step information on how to use the tool. You'll also see a link to the data sources page, which lists all of the data layers and sources that are included in RAPT. You'll also see a link to a number of frequently asked questions about the functionality and data in RAPT. Underneath our Use Cases tab, you'll see scenario-specific examples of real-world use cases that we've used in RAPT. And underneath our About tab, you'll see ways to connect with the RAPT team and ways to stay up to date on RAPT changes. At the top of the Resource Center page, click Access RAPT, and the Resilience Analysis and Planning tool will open for you. Upon entering, you'll see a splash page. Just click OK to go past that. Upon entering RAPT, you'll see a few options in the header, including the option to take a tour of RAPT. Click on Take a Tour, and you'll open up an information window in the middle of the screen. This virtual tour provides various tabs with information on the important function and visual aspects of RAPT. Click the left or right arrows to cycle through the informational tabs. And you can close this window by clicking the X in the upper right-hand corner. You will also see the Resource Center button, which will open up the RAPT Resource Center website in a new tab in your browser. And you'll also see a Contact Us button, which will allow you to send an email to the RAPT team. Once you're in the Resilience Analysis and Planning tool, there are many ways to navigate the map. In the upper left corner, you will find the Zoom In and Zoom Out buttons. You'll find a search bar where you can search for a specific address or place. And the easiest way to navigate through RAPT is if you have a mouse, just by dragging and scrolling in the map. Data layer icons are blue and are located at the top of the map underneath the RAPT header. The analysis icons are green and are located on the right side of the map. You'll also notice a couple action buttons that are dark blue and are located in the upper left corner of the map. The data layer lists are grouped into blue icons at the top of the screen. Each blue icon contains a specific type of data layer, whether it's infrastructure or hazards, indicators, boundaries, etc. The layer list titles are below the icons. Click on the icon to find and view layers in that group. So for this case, we'll click on Base Map. The data layer list will open in the upper left of the screen, and these data layer lists can be moved and they can be resized. We can move them by clicking on the blue bar at the top and dragging them where we want, and we can resize them by clicking in the bottom right and resizing them how we want. You'll notice that for the base maps, we have a number of different options. The default map is the gray navigation map, and other options include satellite imagery, streets, topographic, and terrain views. For this video, we will most likely be using the streets base map. So we can click that, and we'll see our map now reflects with the streets base map. Once we're done with the layer, once we've selected what we want, we can click the close button and it will close our pop-up window. The boundaries layer list provides various boundary layers for reference and analysis, including the tribal boundaries, county boundaries, and municipal boundaries. Again, we can drag and place this layer list wherever we want, and we can resize accordingly. In order to exit out of this list, just click the X in the upper right-hand corner. RAPT also includes important demographic information about the people who live in your community. These community demographic layers are available at the census tract, county, and tribal nation boundary levels. The census tract layer list is labeled as tracts and is an icon with 3 people. A census tract is a small geographic area that usually contains a population between 2,500 to 8,000 people. Just like states are divided into counties, counties are divided into census tracts. We'll drag this layer over here. And as we start with our examples, let's zoom in to an area. Let's zoom into Denver. Users have 2 options for toggling on and off data layers. You can click the layer name, and it will toggle the layer on and off. You can also click the box next to the layer name, and it will toggle the layer on and off. So let's toggle on households without a vehicle. With the layer toggled on, click on the legend, and you'll see the legend will also open up and will display the legend for the layer that we currently have toggled on. To go back to our layer list, we can exit out of the legend, click on our tracks icon again, and we have it here. We can also see the legend in the layer list by clicking the legend button next to the name, and we'll see we have the legend listed right here. Each data layer has 3 dots to the right of the title. Clicking on the 3 dots gives you additional options for how the data layer can be displayed, including the transparency. To adjust the transparency on the visual display, click Transparency and slide to where you would like the value to be. More transparent or less transparent. So we also have pop-up information in the Resilience Analysis and Planning tool. So let's click on a census tract for a pop-up box with information specifically related to the census tract and for the specific indicator. So by clicking on a census tract, we'll see a pop-up box. Not only does it give us the total population of the census tract, which we can see here, it gives us the value for the specific indicator that we're looking at. So in this census tract, it has a population of 6,315 people. And for the percentage of households without a vehicle, there are 15.98% of households without a vehicle. Now, when viewing a pop-up for a data layer, click the Actions button in the upper left of the pop-up, and you'll see various options, including how to view the information in the attribute table, how to set it as a location for our input analysis tools, and how to export the data set to Excel. There's also a way to dock our pop-up. If we want to see more of the map, we can click the Dock option in the upper right. When viewing a pop-up for a data layer, the pop-up appears on the map with a pointer to the location. We can dock the pop-up on the right side of the map by clicking that Dock button. This allows us to see more of the geographic area that we're focused on. To relocate the pop-up back to the original location, we can click the Dock button, which now says Undock, and we'll go back to the map with the arrow pointing to our specific census tract that we're looking at. To close a pop-up, click the X in the upper right-hand corner. In addition to a number of indicators that we have listed here, we also have FEMA's Community Resilience Challenges Index. The Community Resilience Challenges Index is a composite index comprised of the 22 commonly used indicators identified through an analysis of peer-reviewed research. This index provides a relative composite value by county and by census tract, measured as a percentile relative to all the other counties and census tracts, respectively. So FEMA has developed the Community Resilience Challenges Index, or CRCI, based on the updated Community Resilience Indicator Analysis Report, which was published in 2022. More information on the CRCI and the methodology report is available on the RAPT Resource Center. When we have the CRCI layer toggled on, again, we can see the legend here in the layer list. And if we were to click on a census tract, we will get a pop-up with the population for our census tract. We also have a pop-up for the value for this layer, which is the CRCI. This layer is in the 38th percentile. And if we dock our pop-up on the right, we'll also see that for the CRCI layer, we have a list of all of the community resilience indicators and what the values are for this specific census tract. So let's toggle off this layer and toggle on a couple layers at once so we can see what that looks like. Let's toggle on households without a vehicle, and let's also toggle on households without a smartphone. So we'll see the map will update as we toggle on and off various layers, and we can have as many layers toggled on as we want, although the map will only display and correspond to the legend of the layer list that is at the top. So it will only be households without a vehicle. When viewing a pop-up with multiple data layers toggled on, the pop-up will have tabs that correspond to each of the data layers we have toggled on. So if we were to click on this layer, this census tract again, we'll notice that now our pop-up will have a number of tabs that are listed here in the upper right corner. It will have information for one of the layers we have, which is % households without a vehicle. And as we toggle through to the next tab in the pop-up, it will have information for the same census tract, but for the other indicator we have toggled on, which is percentage of households without a smartphone. So again, each tab will display the information that corresponds to the indicator layers we have toggled on. And the more layers you have toggled on, the more tabs you will have in the pop-up, although you'll only see the layer list closest to the top visualized on the map. So now that we've taken a look at some of the census tract level indicators, let's take a look at some of the county level indicators. To toggle layers off in our layer list, we can click the box next to the layer name, or we can click the layer name and you'll see them toggled off. We click on our county icon and we'll open up our county layer list. We'll drag it and resize it how we want. Again, users have two options for toggling on and off our data layers. We can toggle on the name, or we can toggle them on and off using the box next to the name. So the same as with census tracts, let's zoom out a little bit so we can get a bigger view. Just like with census tracts, clicking on one of the counties will give us a pop-up. It'll give us information about the population for that county. And for this specific indicator, it will tell us the value. So percentage of households without a vehicle, we can see for this specific county is 7.3%. Again, if we want this pop-up to actually be closer to the county that we're looking at, we just click the undock button, and now it is undocked and it is in the middle of our screen. In addition to county level indicators, which you can see we have a whole list of right here, we also have tribal nation indicators as well. We'll do the same. We'll drag these over. And the first thing we want to do is before we exit out of any layer list, like we just did, we want to make sure we toggle that layer off so we can go back to our default and our base map. So let's zoom out a little bit so we can see a little bit more of the United States. We'll go to our tribal layer list and we'll toggle on one of these layers. We'll click on the tribal boundaries layer and we'll see that they now represent and they show on the map. We can also click the legend symbol so we can see what we're looking at. And if we click on one of these layers, we'll see we have a pop-up that again gives us the estimated population for the specific tribal nation that we are viewing. And then in our tribal boundaries layer, it actually provides us with all of the information for the available community resilience indicators for the specific tribal nation. Again, we can dock this to the upper right corner of our map so we can see a little bit more on the screen. And we have a list of all of the indicators that are available for this tribal nation. The pop-up functionality is exactly the same in terms of the actions that we have available to us and docking the layer to the upper right. The tribal territories layer contains information for tribes that are spread out through a geographic region. So when you click on one section of a tribe, all sections of that same tribe will be selected on the map. And the information displayed in the pop-up box on this tab represents the data for the whole tribe, not just that specific geographic area. So again, we'll close our pop-up and we'll toggle off our boundaries layer. And if we wanted to toggle on one of our indicator layers, if we wanted to focus on a specific indicator, we can click households without a vehicle. Again, we can look at the legend and we know that anything in this green color will correspond to this bin right here. So we'll click that, we get the pop-up, and we see that the value for this tribal nation, 22.05%, does fall within the green bin right here. Again, we'll exit out of our pop-up, and we always toggle off our indicator layer before we exit out of our layer list. So in addition to seeing information visually on the map and in the pop-ups, we can also see information in tabular form. The attribute table gives us the ability to view and download all of the data in RAPT in a tabular or spreadsheet format. So all of the infrastructure, hazard, and indicator data in RAPT can be viewed in the attribute table. The attribute table can be opened multiple ways. Click on Open Table in our action buttons, and you'll see the attribute table will open up at the bottom of the map. You can also click the blue Extend or Collapse tab at the bottom of the page. The attribute table contains 3 default data layers that provide information for counties, census tracts, and tribal boundaries, including the GOID, the population, CRCI values, and all of the community resilience indicator data points. These default layers will always be available in the attribute table, and you can find them here in this dropdown. So right now we're viewing the counties layer list. We have all of the counties in the United States listed. We have the county names, what state they're in. And if we scroll to the right, we can see that the same information that was in our pop-up earlier, we can see here for each of our indicators. From the attribute table, we also have an actions button here on the right side. If we click the actions button, it will provide us with a number of actions that we have for each of the data layers, including setting filters to view specific data sets, and the option to export this information as well. If we want to close the attribute table, we just hit the collapse button at the bottom of the screen, and now we're back to looking at our map. So in addition to the demographic data layers, RAPT also contains infrastructure and hazard, weather, and risk data. We're going to click on the infrastructure icon to see a drop-down list of all of the infrastructure data layers available in RAPT. I'll pull this over here. And again, we can move and resize these layers as we want. So we're going to click on the name of an infrastructure layer in the drop-down list to toggle that layer on. And then we can click on the legend to see what the legend is for that layer. So let's take a look at hospitals. When we toggle the layer on, you'll notice that we have the layer for the entire national data set. Let's zoom into a specific area if we want to view just the data sets or kind of get a clearer picture of that. So let's zoom in to the Atlanta area really quickly. You'll see we still have a number of red dots, which, as our legend indicates, are a number of hospitals. We click on an entity the same way we do with our indicator layers. When we click on an entity, we will see a pop-up with information about that specific infrastructure entity. This gives us information on what type of hospital it is, what the name of it is, what the address is. Some of these even say the number of beds. It'll say the status, it'll say the location, if it has a helipad or not, the trauma level, and everything. Again, if you want to view the website for this hospital, we can click view and do that. If we want to view the source for this information, we can click on view as well. So again, a number of ways to view this information. And to close our pop-up, we just hit the X in the upper right corner. We can also view multiple infrastructure layers at once. So let's say we wanted to look at hospitals and nursing homes and urgent care facilities. We toggle those on. Again, as we zoom in to get a bit closer view, we can click on one of these entities and we'll see that for this nursing home, we have the name, location, and a number of data sets about it. If we want to know all of the layers we have on and the legend for all of the layers that we currently have toggled on, we can click legend and we'll see that all of the red dots are hospitals, purple dots are nursing homes, and the dark blue dots are urgent care facilities. Again, we can just click on our infrastructure icon and we will see all of our layers listed here as well. So let's just take a look at hospitals and let's zoom out a little bit. We can also view our infrastructure information in the attribute table just like we can with our county, census tract, and tribal nation indicators. So if we want to view our information in the attribute table, we go to our infrastructure name, click on the three dots. Again, this provides all of our actions or all of our options. And we can click Add to Table. When we click Add to Table, and then we click on Open Table, we'll now see, again, let me just resize this box and move it out of our way. We'll now see that in addition to the three default layers we always have in the attribute table for our indicators, we now have another layer for hospitals. And we can see all of the hospitals listed, what type, and all of the information that's in the pop-up is now currently available in the attribute table. Just like before, we have a number of actions we can take. So if we click on our Actions button, we can set filters to only show certain hospitals in a specific state. We'll actually talk about how to do that later in the video. And if I wanted this list of all of the hospitals, I can actually export this to a number of different types of files. So I could export it to a CSV or a comma separated value file if I wanted to. To close our attribute table, we just hit the collapse button. And again, as we're looking at infrastructure layers, remember before we move on to our next example, we just want to toggle our layer off and then exit out of that layer list. So let's zoom out and take a look at the whole map really quickly before we talk about our next layer list, which are hazards. So in addition to the indicator and infrastructure layers, there are also hazard layers in RAPT. So please note that all of this information that you see today, the indicator layers, the infrastructure layers, the hazard layers, all of this is pulled from data that's publicly available. The hazard data in RAPT includes data layers of real-time radar and watch and warning notifications from the National Weather Service. It also includes live stream gauges. It includes historical data for tornadoes and hurricanes. And it also includes flood and seismic risk data from the U.S. Geological Survey and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So let's take a look at some of our national level hazard layers. If I scroll down in my layer list, you'll see one of them that I can see is our real-time weather radar. If we toggle that on, we'll see some of the real-time weather radar that we have on our map. We can see where some of that significant weather is. In addition, we can actually toggle on some of the current National Weather Service watches and warnings that we have throughout the United States. So let's zoom in on a current National Weather Service weather watch or warning. Let's just zoom in up here to the Minnesota area. We can see we have a number of them listed here. Clicking on the map will give us a pop-up of the information for this specific watch and warning. So if I were to click on this specific watch and warning here for Minneapolis-St. Paul, you'll see we have a pop-up and we'll see it's a heat advisory. It tells us when it's in effect, what the affected areas are, what a summary of it is, and it even gives us a description and some authoritative instructions for it. Now, let's say you wanted to see the specific advisory that this is linked to. Over here in the More Info link right here, clicking on the More Info link will actually bring us to the specific advisory that was released by the National Weather Service. In addition to this, we have some over here. If we were to click on this, we'll see that it's a different type. This is a flood warning. When it's in effect until, again, the affected areas, a summary, a link to more information to the specific notice from the National Weather Service, and a description of the flood warning. So let's also take a look at some of the other hazard layers that we have in RAPT. We have if we zoom out a little bit, we have some historical layers such as hurricane tracks that we can toggle those on and see those here. If we were to click on one of these, again, we will get a pop-up with information on what storm it was, storm classification, where it occurred, what the recorded sustained winds were, and a number of pieces of information about it. We also have historical tornado tracks. We can toggle those on, and again, clicking on one of those will provide us with a pop-up with the same information for that event. You'll notice that some of our hazards are grayed out. On these layers, you have to zoom into the map to a closer level. These layers will move from grayed out to a normal font. So as we zoom in and we get a little bit closer, we can now see that we can toggle these layers on. And as we zoom in, let's take a look at the FEMA flood hazard layer. We can toggle that on. We'll see it reflects on our map. And if we look at our legend here in the layer list, we can see what the different shades represent and what the different colors mean. So as we're looking at the flood hazard layer, we could also toggle on some infrastructure layers to see any infrastructure entities that could be located in the flood zone. So we can see if we click on our infrastructure tab, we have it listed over here. And let's say we wanted to look at any public schools that might be in the flood hazard zone. We can toggle those on, and we'll see that we have orange squares appearing that represent public schools. We can see that by looking at the legend. And we can see if any of these are located in the flood zone. It looks like down here in our bottom left, it looks like we might have one that's located in the flood zone. We can see what public school it is, what type of school, where it's located, and it'll even give us the number of enrollment, so maybe the number of students that we have. So just a quick, easy way to toggle on multiple layers, look at different hazards in terms of the FEMA flood hazard zones, and then also any potential infrastructure entities that might be located within those. We can do the same if we were to toggle on hospitals to see if there are any of those located in the flood hazard zones. If we find one, we can click on it, see where it is, the type of hospital, and the location, and get some information about it. So let's say we were looking at a number of these entities, and sometimes we're looking at multiple layers at once, and the map can become really busy and we can't really see the fine details of certain layers. We may want to start from the beginning with a fresh map. There are two ways we can reset RAPT and start from the initial landing page. The first one is we can refresh our browser in the upper left, depending on what type of browser you have. The second way is in the upper right corner, there is a Reset RAPT button. Click this button and RAPT will refresh, and all of the layers you toggled on the map will now be toggled off. The default layers in RAPT will always remain in those layer lists, but we'll just have to toggle them on again. We'll see once we do this, we now have access to our pop-up or our splash page. We click OK, we agree, and now we're back at the default map for RAPT. So as we did before, one of the first things we can do is we can click on our base map layers. Again, we can move, resize our windows however we want. And let's toggle on the streets base map just for our next example before I exit out. So in addition to the preloaded data layers that are included by default in RAPT, we can also temporarily add other layers to RAPT as well. We can do this by clicking the Add Data Action button in the upper left and moving our Add Data box to wherever we would currently like it to be located. So there are three libraries of GIS data in RAPT. We have the ArcGIS Online, we have Esri Living Atlas, and a curated list of RAPT suggested layers. So we'll click the Add Data button. And we'll see that the first thing that pops up is the ability to search for layers. As we mentioned, we can search through ArcGIS Online. If we hit our drop-down layer or drop-down arrow, we can see we can also search for the Esri Living Atlas, and we can search through our RAPT suggested layers. So we're going to take a look at some of the layers in the RAPT suggested layers list. These layers have been suggested to us by local emergency managers, state officials, public health officials, as layers that are important and they want easy access to, but they might be too large to include in RAPT as a default layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a layer in here, and let's say we just want to add USA airports to it. I click the layer. You'll see that a little blue triangle will appear in the upper right-hand corner of the layer that you select, and the Done option will appear at the bottom right. Once you click Done, the search window will disappear. You'll see the added data layer displayed on the Add Data window, and the layer will appear on the map. You'll also see that it zooms out. So we're going to have to zoom in a little bit to kind of take a look at some of these layers. So as we zoom in, we can see more of our layers appearing. Once added, the data layer has the same functionality as the other layers. So we can click on one of these airports. It'll give us a pop-up. It'll show us what information is available for this specific airport. We can scroll down. Again, we can dock this on the right so we can see a little bit more information on the map, or we can have this be right above where we want to click. We can also see what actions are available for each of the data layers. Now, once a data layer is added to the map, it's going to appear in all of the layer lists. So since we added airports, if we were to click on infrastructure, you'll see that USA airports is now added. If we wanted to see the legend to see what the difference is between these different colored airplane icons, we can open the legend in the layer list and it will show us what the differences are. And as we zoom in, it will actually update because we will actually have some smaller airports that are available on the map now, and it will show us what those are as well. So we're going to exit out of our layer list, and we can remove any data layer from the map. In our Add Data window, we can just click the trash can, the Remove button, and now you'll see that it's removed from our map, and it's no longer in our layer lists because we've removed it. To add additional layers to the data layer list, you can actually just click the blue Click to Add icon, and we can search for additional layers. In addition to searching for layers, you can actually search for specific URLs. So you can add REST services, copy and paste them here, drop them in here and click Add. They will add to the map. And you can also upload your own types of files. If it's a supported format, you can drag and drop or browse to upload your specific file to RAPT as well. So one important thing to note, while you can upload additional layers for analysis, you will not be able to permanently add these layers into RAPT. As a publicly available tool that does not require a username or password, local layers can't be permanently saved or embedded. However, the added data layers will remain in your Add Data window until you completely close out of your browser, or you remove them like we did previously. So let's add a data layer by searching for layers in ArcGIS Online or the Esri Living Atlas. So let's just zoom in to the Kentucky, Tennessee region. And let's say we wanted to search for some of the tornado damage from the 2021 storms that passed through. You'll see the search updates with a number of different layers. And we're going to select this layer. Once we have the blue triangle in the upper right corner, we hit Done. And we'll now see that we have these layers represented on our map right here. The added data layer displays on the map and includes information about the hazard in the pop-up. So if we were to zoom in, let's say we wanted to see the legend for this, we can go to our layer list. We can see what we're looking at in terms of damage polygons, what the damage lines means. We can see these are stronger tornadoes, stronger storms, and we can actually see that there are damage points along here as well. If we were to click on one of these, we get a pop-up. It's a damage point. We see information for it. And you can see we have a number of tabs in our pop-up. We can also toggle along to see some other damage points that we clicked on. In addition to data layers, RAPT may also contains some pretty useful analysis tools. These analysis tools are grouped into green icons on the right of the screen. Each green icon contains a specific type of analysis tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove our added data layer. We're going to exit out of this. We're going to zoom out a little bit. We're going to take a look at some of these analysis tools that we have. The first tool that we're going to look at is the Draw, Measure, and Find Coordinates tool. This contains options to help draw and measure customized visualizations that display on the map. It can also display measurements for drawn features such as length, area, and perimeter, and show the coordinates of any single point on the map. So once open, we'll notice that the coordinates update according to where our mouse is on the screen. As we move our mouse around the map, you'll see that our coordinates here are listed and they update as we move them along. If we click on the enable clicking to get coordinates, you'll notice that if we click on the map, now it will show us the coordinates for those specific area and won't update as we continue along. So if we were to move that, now we have different coordinates as it updates. And we want to make sure we toggle this off before doing anything else in the map. So we're just going to deselect that. Now let's talk about our measure tool. The next tool available in this widget is the measure tool, which allows you to see real-time measurement details for line segments or polygonal shapes. So let's go down to Birmingham. And let's take a look at the measurement tool. Select the shape we'd like to draw. So let's say we want to measure distance. The icon will turn blue. It will give us some instructions on how to do that. And we can also select our unit of measurement. So we are going to measure in miles. You'll see some instructions here. Click on the starting point for our shape. So let's zoom in and let's say we want to measure from this intersection right here. And as we move our mouse, you'll see that the length and measurement is updated on the map and over in the tool that we see on the right. We can single click to continue our measurement. So let's say I want to measure to here. And then I want to go from there here. It will continue to add to our measurement. And then you double click to finish drawing our shape and see the final value. Click the remove icon to delete the shape. So we can click that. And then we have to deselect the shape icon in order to return to normal wrapped function. So you see how this is still blue and selected here. In order to return to normal wrap function, we can deselect that and we can go down to our third option in this widget, which is draw. The draw tool is located at the bottom of the widget and allows us to place various shapes and text boxes onto the map. So to draw an object, we select the shape of the object we want. Let's say we want to draw a circle. It'll give us a number of options. The formatting options will appear and allow us to adjust the border, the color, the transparency. Let's just select green. Let's say 50% transparency. We also have the option to include our measurements for our shapes, depending on the type of shape. So we can include the area measurement or the perimeter measurement if we would want to. After you select the shape and choose our formatting, we move our cursor to the map. Depending on the type of shape you've selected, you'll see it on the map. So we click and drag, and we'll notice that now we have our circle shape. And once we let go of our mouse, we now have a shape drawn on the map. If I want to draw another shape, and let's say I wanted to show the area measurement in square miles, I'll go over here, I'll draw another shape, and now you'll see that when I'm done drawing the shape, it will actually provide me the measurement in square miles because we have that selected on in our tool. So we can clear all of our drawings by clicking the Clear All button in the tool. So let's say I go over here, you'll see the Clear All button. We'll click that and we remove all of the drawings from the map. And again, in order to get back to normal functionality in the map, we have to deselect Draw a Circle. There we go. And now we can exit out of our Draw Measure Coordinates tool. So now let's look at another one of our analysis tools. And I'm just going to look at the southeast of the United States over here. And we're going to look at the filter function, which is the next tool. The filter function allows us to set parameters and filter certain indicators, infrastructure, and hazards by specific characteristics, such as the location or the value or characteristic, like the type of a hospital, for example. So we can use the filter function and set parameters through the layer list in the attribute table and via the filter tool. So we're going to show how to use it in the filter tool, as the steps are the same for each of the options. So before setting our filters in RAPT, we want to turn on the indicator or infrastructure or hazard layers that we want to filter. This will allow us to see the changes as we go through. So I'm just going to turn on an infrastructure layer. And like we mentioned earlier, let's toggle on our hospitals layer. We can see that when we do that, we have hospitals toggled on for the entire United States. So we're going to click on the filter icon right here, and it's going to open up a filter for us. We can see some pre-selected layers that are available for filtering. This allows us to kind of use preloaded filters for the most common infrastructure and indicator layers. But you can also create more advanced custom filters as well. So we're going to take a look at hospitals. If we click the expand name next to the layer name in the filter tool, a list of parameters will appear. So we can filter by county, city, state, or type of hospitals. So let's take a look at the state of South Carolina and look at those. We click on our drop-down arrow, and then you see it's giving us our 2-letter state code. We'll scroll down to SC for South Carolina. Once we have all of these selected, we go up here and we toggle our layer on by clicking the button in the upper right. You'll now see that our map will now only display those data points that fall within the parameters we have set. So again, toggling off the filter, we can see our national data set. Toggling on our filter, it's only going to show us the hospitals in the state of South Carolina. Let's say we also wanted to add an additional filter to this. We wanted an additional parameter. Let's say we just want the general acute care hospitals in South Carolina. By adding that, now we can see our map just shows the general acute care hospitals in the state. So we can also view this information in the attribute table. So if we were to open up the infrastructure layer and we're looking at hospitals right here, again, the 3 dots next to the layer name give us our options, and we can click add to table. If we open our attribute table, now we can see that for hospitals listed here, we only have the hospitals that are general acute care in South Carolina. You can see the state is all South Carolina and the type is all general acute care. From here, let's say I wanted to get an exported copy of this list. Again, in the attribute table, I can click on actions. I've already set my filters, so I don't need to do that, but I can export this list. And let's say I export it to a CSV or an Excel file. I can then take this list, filter it, sort it, share it with whoever I need to. But that's an easy way to set some filters using the filter tool. Only look at specific infrastructure entities that we want. See them in the attribute table. Again, anytime you see these 3 dots next to a layer list, it gives us options. We clicked add to table, open the attribute table, and now we can see that they're listed here. And from here, we can export them. I'm going to close the attribute table. And let's say we want to remove this filter. What we can do is we just toggle it off, and then we exit out of the filter. And now we're back to just our regular infrastructure layer that we had previously. So we can also create custom filters for all of the layers in RAPT and even for added data layers. So we're going to add a data layer from the data widget, and then we're going to create a custom filter. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back. We're going to look at add data. We're going to click to add data. And again, we can search ArcGIS Online. We can search Esri's Living Atlas, but we're actually going to look through our RAPT suggested layers list. And one of the layers that we're going to add is we're going to try to add cellular towers. So let's take a look at these cellular towers in the United States. We hit done. You'll see once we add it, they're added to the list. And let's zoom in on that same area. So let's continue to focus on South Carolina. We can see a number of groups of cell towers. We see them all across the United States. So I'm going to exit out of my add data window, but it's still going to remain open because I haven't removed the layer yet. Once the layer is added, open the infrastructure layer list right here, and we'll actually see that added layer at the top of our infrastructure layer list. Click the options, and we're going to see an option to set filter. The set filter window will open and will allow you to set parameters or clauses to filter this layer. So we're going to add a clause, or basically a parameter. And now we have to tell it what we want it to filter by. And what we're going to do is we're going to filter by state for this example. So we're going to set our conditions. So we're going to say state is, and then we're going to set our condition and qualifiers by selecting the option in box 2. So we'll leave as is. And then what we want to do, there are 3 different ways to input values for our parameters. We're going to click on select source type, and we're going to click on unique. We always recommend using the unique option for filters because it automatically uses the correct formatting for the input type. For this example, using the unique input type creates a drop-down, again, of all of the 2-letter state codes. We're going to scroll down till we find South Carolina. We're going to click on SC. So now we have our list that we've added to our map, cellular towers in the United States. We've set a filter, we've added a clause. So the state is unique value South Carolina. We selected our input in box 3, which is South Carolina. So once all the parameters of or clauses have been set, again, we can toggle on the filter by clicking the toggle button. And once we do that, the map will now reflect only those data points that fall within the established parameters. So again, for this example, we're only looking at cellular towers in the state of South Carolina. So let's zoom in a little bit so we can kind of see some of the differences. Now we can see a number of different colors and different types of cellular towers. If I want to know what those types of cellular towers mean, I can look at my legend. I see tower, L tower, G tower, M tower, and so on. Let's say I want to look at just a specific type of tower. So let's say I only want to look at the red towers as opposed to the other ones. Well, what we can do is we can add another clause. We just click add clause, and we want it to be just in South Carolina and just a specific type of tower. So what we're going to do is we can take a look at our first value. And we'll have to see what it is. We'll have to see if it's structure type. We click on unique. So we click structure type, leave this as is. Select our source type. We're going to say unique, and it will provide a list of all of the different types. And again, we just want tower. So we click on that, and now we'll see our map will reflect, and it's using both of these parameters or clauses. We're only looking at cellular towers that are labeled as tower in the state of South Carolina. And again, just like with previous data layers that we've added and other layers in RAPT, we can click on one of these entities. It will give us the type of tower and some location information about it. So we can see the filtered information for the added data layer both on the map and in the attribute table. So for instance, let's say we just want to export this list. Again, anytime we have a layer list here, we can click on options. Now we want to add it to the attribute table. We click open table, and now we can see for cellular towers in the United States, we have this list here. We can see all of these towers listed. You can see the same information that's in the pop-up is located right here. They're all in South Carolina, and they're all going to be the tower structure type. And from here, again, we can export this information by clicking actions, export, and export it to the type of file that we want. So now we're going to clear all our filters by resetting RAPT and look at a different analysis tool. So again, we have a lot going on. We have a lot of filters. We would want to make sure we clear those out before doing anything else in RAPT. One way to do that is to click Reset RAPT. Again, RAPT is going to take us to the initial splash page. We'll click OK. We'll agree. And one of the great things about RAPT is even though we've just reset it, once we click on our Add Data button, the layer that we added is still in RAPT. Once we open the Add Data tool, it is still in there. So to remove it, we just click the Remove button, and now we're just looking at our default map. So the Incident Analysis tool, which is located right here, it's the next tool we want to look at. And it allows you to create a shape and a buffer zone around that shape that represents an incident area and identify and visualize different infrastructure data points within that area. So we're going to set our buffer distance and unit of measurement by using arrows or clicking inside the box, typing the desired value and hitting enter. So let's zoom into the Phoenix area. One thing we haven't done so far is we haven't selected our base map. So let's click on our base map. We'll see that it opens up. Again, it brings us back to our default layer. And for this example, actually, let's go with imagery. So let's take a look at some of the imagery that we have over here. As we're here looking at the Phoenix area and we're using our incident analysis tool, again, we can do a point location, we can do a line, or we can do a polygon. So let's type, let's do a polygon. So if we were to draw a polygon, we'll click where we want our ends of the polygon to be. And again, at the end, we double click to finish drawing our polygon. And you'll see that the tool is analyzing. It is looking for all of the critical infrastructure entities within that area. And if we were to expand the tool a little bit, we can see we have a number of items here. We have over 90 hospitals, a number of nursing homes, urgent care facilities, mobile home parks, and everything. Let's take a look at the hospitals layer. If we click on hospitals, it gives us a list of all of the hospitals that are located within our incident area. You'll see them appearing on the map as these pink or red squares. And if we were to click on one of these, it will actually give us information, the same information that would be in our pop-up if we were to click on it through the infrastructure layer. Now, if we wanted to take this information and export it, we can export this list of hospitals right here by hitting the export button. This will export all of the information to a CSV, a comma separated value, or a Excel file. It's important to know that before we move on to our next option in the incident analysis tool, we want to click the remove button. So start from the beginning. Another thing we can do is we can actually set a point, and let's say we want a 3-mile radius. We can do that as well. So we're going to click point, and in this box, we're going to change this to 3. So now we know that we are going to be looking at a 3-mile radius from this specific point. We click that. We now have our radius drawn here. We have our 3 miles in each direction. We can see visually on the map where we're looking at. It looks like I happen to click right on the airport. So in a 3-mile radius from this airport, we know there are 8 different hospitals. We can see where they are, these red, pink boxes here on the map. We can see how far away they are from the airport, actually, which ones are closer versus which ones are further away. And again, for any of these layers, even if we're looking at public schools or mobile home parks, we can see these, where they're located, and we can export this information as well. So a few things to note about the incident analysis tool. You can only select one infrastructure layer at a time, but the buffer zone will not disappear as you toggle between these layers. And then you can only create one buffer zone at a time. And to erase the current buffer zone, we just hit clear. I'm going to exit out of the incident analysis tool, and let's change our base map back to streets. Let's zoom out. Let's take a look at a different area. So let's go over here, let's say to Detroit. Another tool that we have is the population counter. That's located here. And the population counter tool allows you to draw a specific area of interest on the map, select all census tracts within that area, and then we'll calculate the estimated population of individuals with specific resilience indicator characteristics. So when we click on the icon, we'll see the tool opens up for us on the right side of the map. We're going to click on the draw input features. This shows a list of options for shapes for us to use as the area of interest. You can select a shape with buffer zones like a single point or a line like we did previously, or you can do a user drawn shape like unique polygons. So we're going to click on draw input features, and then we're going to select our shape. And we're going to do a polygon for our first example. So I'm going to click polygon. And as I move my mouse over the map, you're going to see that I have a little cross with an orange dot. Again, I'm selecting the outline of my polygon here. You can see it highlighted in blue. Once I have it selected, it will show up here as the population counter select area of interest. And then we're going to click run. The tool will begin calculating the estimated population. So you're going to be taking to the History tab of the tool, and you'll see running below the RAPT population counter tile. The calculated population estimates for all the indicators in the selected area of interest, including the total population, will be listed at the bottom of the History tab. It'll show the updated information here. Sometimes it takes a little while to run. But here we have it right here, and the map will display all of the census tracts that are included in our area of interest. So now we have our incident area right here. We have the total population in that area, so 1.25 million people. And in this incident area, we have an estimate for the total number of individuals who live in households without a vehicle, about 42,000. The total number of individuals who live in households without a smartphone, about 51,700, and so on. So if we click on RAPT population counter, it's actually, sometimes this will pop up. It'll say you need to log into ArcGIS Online. Don't worry, RAPT is publicly available and free to use. Just hit cancel, and you'll go right back to RAPT. So if that pops up, no need to worry, just hit cancel. There's no need to log in, and there's no password to use the resilience analysis and planning tool. When we're in the results, we'll scroll down. We'll see the results right here for the selected tracks. We'll also see an actions button. Click the actions button, and it will give us a number of options, such as viewing the information in the attribute table and being able to export all of the data for these census tracts to a CSV file. So if we open any of these layer lists right here, let's say we wanted to look at infrastructure, we'll see that we now have two new layers, our selected tracks, which are these right here, because that's what's providing us with all of this information in our output, and the population counter select area of interest sketch. Every time you draw an area on the map using the population counter, you're going to get a new one of these layers on. It's really easy to just toggle those off, and then if you ever to hit RAPT reset, it will remove those layers. So let's say we wanted to draw a new area of interest. We can go to the Tools tab, and we're going to select X to remove our sketch. Another important thing we have to do is we can still see our selected tracks are here. In the bottom right-hand corner, you're going to see a little icon that looks like a trash can. That's to clear our results. We're going to clear our selected tracks. You'll see once we do that, it's removed from our layer list, and then we're going to toggle off our previous input for our layer list. So now we're basically starting back at the beginning. So now we want to do a different area of interest. Let's click on our input features, and let's say this time we do want to do a single point, and we want it to give us a 3-mile buffer distance. We go back to our map, we click where we want to go. It will show us, now we've selected this point. We select our buffer distance, 3 miles, make sure that's set. We hit run, and now it's going to take this specific point, give us our 3-mile radius, do the calculations again, and you'll see these numbers will update now because we have a different incident area that we're looking at. Again, it might take a few minutes for it to calculate. We let the tool run. And then we're going to make sure now we have, here we go, our 3-mile radius. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. And now we have updated data for this. So within this 3-mile radius, we have around almost 92,000 individuals. and then we can see the number of individuals for each indicator listed in the population counter. And again, before we do anything else with our tool, because we can see when our mouse is on the map, it still wants to draw another incident area. We have to go to Tools. We're going to exit out of that area. And then again, in our bottom right, we're going to clear these results, clear those selected tracks. You can see they're removed from our layer list, and we're going to toggle that off. So now we're basically back to where we started. I'm going to exit out of the infrastructure layer and the population counter to zoom out a little bit to show you something that's really exciting. Another thing to do, in addition to drawing our shapes, we can use shape files to set the incident area for the incident analysis tool and the population counter tools. So this is a great option if you have a unique shape like a city boundary or one of those watches and warnings that we had earlier. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to toggle on our boundaries layer, and we're going to do the incident analysis tool using municipal boundaries. So we're going to toggle on our municipal boundaries, and we'll see them updated on the map right here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to click on one of these, and we're going to see, okay, this is our boundary for the city of Lansing. I'm just going to dock this on the right just to kind of give us a little more information and a little bit more room on the map. We can see the city of Lansing right here. Now, one thing that we looked at, remember, is we can, in the pop-up, we can click on the Actions button. And this allows us to set the location, which is for the incident analysis tool. And we can also set it as the analysis input for the population counter. So I'm going to do this set location as the incident analysis tool. You'll see now the outline is highlighted. The incident analysis tool automatically opens, and now it is using the outline of the municipal boundaries for the city of Lansing as the input for the tool. So now if I zoom in a little bit more, I click on hospitals, and now we can see all of the hospitals represented by these red boxes that are within the city limits. Again, we can highlight one of these. If we were to click on one, it gives us information here in the list in the incident analysis tool, the same one we would find in the pop-up. And then if we wanted to export this information, we could click export. If I wanted to export all of these lists for all of these infrastructure entities within the tool, all I would have to do is hit export up here at the top, and it would give me a list of all of these. So now the tool runs as we described earlier, and we can see all of the infrastructure layers and additional information in the list. So again, just how to do that really quickly. The first thing we do is we toggle on our boundaries layer, municipal boundaries. We then click on the boundary we want to use. So again, we're using the city of Lansing. And now in the pop-up, we have our actions button. We click set location because we want to use it for our incident analysis tool. You'll see the incident analysis tool automatically opens, and it's already run our analysis for us. And to export this information, we can click the export button for any of them. And before we exit out, we always want to hit clear, and then we exit out of our incident analysis tool and out of our municipal boundaries layer. So that's how to use a shapefile for the incident analysis tool. I'm going to toggle off the municipal boundaries. We're going to zoom out again. We're going to toggle on our watches and warnings because we're going to use one of these for the input of our population counter as well. So again, let's take a look at some of these over here. Let's say we're over on the river and we have some of this information. If we were to click on this watch and warning, we'll see it's a flood warning, when it started, when it's in effect until, areas it's impacting, description, and everything. Again, in our pop-up, we have our actions button. So we're going to click actions, and instead of set location, which is our incident analysis tool, which focuses on critical infrastructure, we're going to set this as our analysis input for our population counter. You'll see the population counter will open at the bottom. We need to select our tool, which is the population counter, and select our parameter, which is the area of interest. We click OK. You'll see now in the tool, the selection is 1. It already uses our information for our selection. We can erase our buffer distance, or we can just put 1 here. We're going to click Run. Now what it's going to do is it's going to take this flood warning that we selected and do the same thing it did when we drew the input shape. It's going to look at the census tracts in that area, it's going to calculate an estimate for the total number of individuals within those census tracts, and then it's going to give us an estimate for the number of individuals with each indicator listed. So we can see right here, I'll just zoom out a little bit so we can see it, the total number of individuals that are currently impacted under this flood warning. We can see about almost 3,000, and then as we go in, we can see for each individual indicator what those values are. So again, let's say we have a lot going on. We're using these tools. We have a number of infrastructure entities toggled on. While we've run this tool, we can toggle on infrastructure entities. So we could say, all right, now are there any mobile home parks in this area? We can see, yes, there are 1, 2, 3 located right within this flood warning area. We can also toggle on some of our census tracts. Let's say, all right, within this area, are there a number of households without access to a vehicle? We can see this census tract right here typically has a little bit higher values for that. Let's say we have a lot of things toggled on and we really want to just reset and start from the beginning. One thing we can do is we'll just exit out of our pop-up and again, click Reset RAPT. It will toggle everything off. We'll go back to the splash page. We'll agree, hit OK, and now we're back right where we started with the base map. I'm going to zoom in to the Seattle area a little bit up here, and I'm going to turn on our streets base map again. We also have a print function over here, which lets us save a PDF of the map that's on our screen. This is going to include any layers that are showing on the map when we print and their respective legends. So let's say we were looking at infrastructure layers and I was looking at mobile home parks and public schools. We can zoom in. We see we have a number of those in the Seattle area, but let's say we just looking at this southern area kind of down by the airport. We can see those here. And let's say I also was interested in some of our indicator layers, such as households without a smartphone. I can see where these are. Let's say I wanted a map of this. One way to do it from RAPT is to click the print icon. It will open up a print option. We can get our template. We can even title it. So let's title it RAPT example. And there are advanced options. So click the advanced button to modify various aspects of your map, including labels, map size, extent, legend, print quality, and stuff. We're just going to go current map extent. No need to add any of this. I want to include the legend and the north arrow. And then I'm going to hit print. And what's going to happen is over in the results tab here in the print pop-up window is it's going to create a PDF that you're going to be able to open. It will show you our map extent that we're looking at right here. And it's also going to include all of the legends that we have. So if we click on results, we can see RAPT example right here. And if we were to click on it, it now opens up a PDF. We have the area we're looking at. Again, all of our infrastructure entities with the legend for any of the census tracts, infrastructure, or hazards that we have toggled on. I'm just going to exit out of this. We can easily remove this by clicking the X, and we go back to our print template, and we can just exit out of it. If we want to know all the layers we have toggled on, again, we can click on legend. It shows us that we have a couple infrastructure layers and a census tract layer on. So now if I click on my infrastructure layer list, I can toggle those off. And I know I have to click on my tracks layer list and toggle that one off as well. So now we can hit reset RAPT and we'll go back to the beginning. We click OK. All right. Again, I just really want to thank you for your interest in using the Resilience Analysis and Planning Tool, or RAPT, to better understand some potential challenges to resilience in your community, your region, or your state. If you have any questions about RAPT, please go to the RAPT Resource Center and reach out to our team. In order to reach out to our team, you can see our email right here, FEMA-TA request@fema.dhs.gov. Thank you very much, and we hope you enjoy this video.